going to keep this really short because I've got quite a lot of work to do tonight. But I'm just going to reflect on today because we set my goals, which are really good because the overarching premise for doing that was my overall kind of goal really, and my educator agreed, is to become band 5 ready. So I thought to myself, well, I'm in my 3rd year. This is going to be the one and only respiratory placement I have. And in August next year, potentially I could be going on to a respiratory rotation in my first band 5 post. So I thought, well, it makes sense that this placement preps me as much as possible to be at the level I need to be to walk into my first job on my first rotation if it happens to be respiratory. So that's kind of the idea of my goals, and then we've separated my goals into sort of comprehensive, subjective, objective assessments, interpreting all of the information that I'll have around me, from ABGs to X-rays to all of the bloods, and to ambulatory oxygen support. So that's kind of all of that. And then I want to be able to then implement a evidence-based and importantly a critically appraised evidence-based treatment plan. So what I mean by that is that my treatment plan will be clinically reasoned based on my subjective objective assessments and the patient's notes, importantly, and all the things around me. It might include some MDT information as well. So I'll draw upon all of that. My clinical reasoning will then say, well, because of all of that, this is the treatment that I feel is best, and I feel it's right because of the evidence that then is sort of pointing towards it. But there'll be however, that evidence isn't as robust as it could be because of X, Y, and Z, or I would have used such and such treatment, but the evidence for that isn't generalizable to this patient population. So I need to go into really that very top part of the pyramid. I need to get my basics right first, and that's definitely the main part of my objectives, a bit like any of my ISBs. And then I'm going to build on that with my clinical reasoning, my drawing upon then all of that information, including some evidence, and then critically appraise that evidence to come up with a really robust plan to do that. And then on top of that, I've got, with my MDT working, we've got some discharge stuff in there as well, which links into my treatment plan to then follow on to a discharge plan. And then my other goal is to be able to manage a caseload, the wards particularly, to prioritise patients on ICU and across the wards, to allocate patients where possible to the rehab assistants with a good plan, to then update that plan after 3 days maximum with that rehab assistant, to then be able to manage my own caseload from that prioritisation, to utilise other physiotherapists if at our 11 o'clock meeting it's looking like another or myself aren't quite going to get to all of our patients. We nip it in the bud and then work as a team. So I want to try and lead on that a little bit. And so manage my caseload on top of that. And yeah, so that's kind of the pinnacle really in terms of working within the placement. So that should be coming into play in my final week. So yeah, really pleased with my goals. I think they're going to be hard. I'm going to be hard pushed to achieve all of them, but they're there to shoot at, and I'm going to do my very best as I do with everything. And I've got a good support network. Everyone from my educator to the other band 7 specialists to the band 6s, a couple of band 6s, and then band 5 Katie, who, as I say, is 2 years into band 5 and is actually, I think she's actually a lot more knowledgeable than she gives herself credit for. So she's been an asset to me so far on this placement, and I'm sure will continue to do so. Claire is a font of knowledge in terms of she gives so much, which is great for me because I love detail. And then Rob is just in a very different way, incredibly knowledgeable in and able to give succinct nuggets of information when they're relevant. And I think that's really good for me because I have a tendency to blurb is completely the wrong word. I have a tendency to waffle. Those who know me will know that well. And I have a tendency to kind of not be as concise as I could be. Some of these videos will show that, I'm sure. So Rob does push for a concise communication. So we're using the S-bar, and I started to do that today. I think that went okay. I then went away and I did my objective assessment with the patient, my subjective and objective assessment with the patient, and then I kind of fell down a little bit. The subjective was fine, but my objective, I forgot the systematic approach of airways, breathing, circulation, disability and exposure, or everything else. And I did, maybe I was right in terms of what I did was relevant, but then I came back to Rob to give him the information, and I kind of didn't have a couple of things such as, simple things like blood pressure, heart rate, respirate, stuff like that, which I probably took notice of, but I didn't take it properly into then be able to communicate it. Really interested in moving that patient, lots of wires, lots of lines, lots of stuff going on. Day 2 post-op, 77-year-old male with previously very active, etc. So there was a lot more going on than I potentially started to think. I thought, he'll be fine, blah blah blah, but potentially wasn't as well. So that went really well. So in terms of the placement and my goals, etc., pleased with those. Reckon I can really do well in them, and even though it will be hard pushed, I'll be hard pushed to get them all done, but I'm going to try. So next one quickly is another patient that I saw today. Very anxious patient, very worried, but has come on so significantly. I saw I think on my first day over a week ago now, Monday the 30th, and a patient that has gone from being barely alert, very, I'd say responsive, but not incredibly, barely able to get up onto the Arjo to stand at all, really incredibly shaky, terribly nervous, reliant on husband, all those sorts of things. Anyway, today, still all of that is still there, to be honest, in terms of the anxiousness, the worry, the reliance, that sort of stuff. But I went in today, we stood to the Arjo with the help of a nurse, because I'm trying to encourage her to be able to do these things with other health professionals, not just waiting for me. And I couldn't get her to sit down again. She was standing, and I said I'd carefully say things like, at some point we're going to get you marching, and I knew what she might do, and I did it deliberately, and she did. She started marching, she just weight transferred without me even asking, and I'm thinking, well, there we are. There's something, and some things that I potentially probably wouldn't have even asked her to do today, she started doing. So that made me think I need to be more inclined to progress and push patients a little bit more, especially when they're in a safe environment. Like they were today, with 2 of us there on an Arjo. It would have been difficult for something to go wrong with a chair behind. But anyway, she started then with lumbar extensions and flexions, and she was just so happy. And at one point she became quite tearful because she wants to get back home and doing stuff with her husband, and that was quite moving. You could see how important this was, and again, it made me realise that got to take a step back and realise how big a deal these things are. I'm going in, I'm standing a patient, doing a few exercises, sit back down, make sure they're comfortable, and off I go again. on face value. But for that person, this time of their life is potentially one of, or if not the most significant, most arduous, most scary, most emotional, painful, isolating, lonely times of their life. And I'm there with them, and they're relying on me, and in this case quite heavily, and trusting me to get them through that. And when you sit back and think of it like that, you realise what an incredible position to be in. There's not many situations in life where what you do as a job and what you're trained to do has such an impact on someone's life, and that's pretty massive. And I want to vow never to forget that. No matter how busy I am at work, no matter how much pressures there are, and no matter who I work around, I don't ever want to forget the fact that what I'm doing, or who I'm doing these things with and for, where they are in their lives and what that means to them, not what it means to me, and not how important it seems to me, but actually how important is it to them. So there's a big kind of major reflection, really, and it's not new, it's not revelationary at all, and if I share this, I'm sure some of you watching it is sort of thinking, well, it's kind of obvious, but I work around people, not so much here, but I have worked around many people who clearly have forgotten how big a deal it is for the patients, and losing patience with patients, and being abrupt, losing any compassion, getting irritated, short, rushed, all those things which you just think, oh, just stop and remember and think about who you're helping and caring for. And it doesn't necessarily take any extra time to show some compassion, some empathy, some understanding, and a bit of care. And as I say, I think that happens in the minority, and I understand that the pressures that healthcare professionals are under make it harder, but I don't think it's impossible. And I really want to be very conscious of it in my career to make sure I don't lose that perspective. So tomorrow I'm spending some time with Laura, one of the Band 6 physios who runs a respiratory outpatients clinic. So doing that in the morning from 8:30, and then I'm going to try and get to see the patient I've just been speaking about again tomorrow, sort of around lunchtime, because in the afternoon I'm really excited. Actually, I'm going to spend the afternoon with the clinical nurse specialist, clinical respiratory clinical specialist, and so I'm really looking forward to that, because I'm going to see both them in clinic and then them on the wards as well. So that is going to be a fantastic insight. And I gather the person I'm going to be with is, I think I mentioned a few videos before, she's about to leave, but she's very highly regarded in terms of how much she knows and her knowledge, etc. So I feel hopefully that should be a very, very useful afternoon. So tomorrow should be a good day. It's going to be a busy day. It's going to be a lot more learning. This afternoon I'm going to go through a couple of things. The effects of sodium and potassium on cardiac function is something else I want to look up. I need to just make sure I hone down some of these basics of my assessments. I need to get my head around compensation in terms of metabolic acidosis and alkalosis, as opposed to respiratory drivers. I'm aware of them, but it's not it's not quick enough at the moment. I'm still having to ponder and think a little bit too much, or more than I want to be able to. So that's my plan. So by the end of this week, I've only got one more day of actually working with patients on Friday. So the plan there is to really kind of push on Friday, so I then can see my gaps for the weekend and where I'm going to work on at the weekend. We're going to have plenty of time at the weekend to do lots and lots of working. idea of the weekend as well will be to get all those basics, but also then to start pulling together some research. Not necessarily doing a lot with it, but just starting to become a little bit aware of the evidence base and do sort of a mini literature search, and get familiar with that. So, all being said, this short video, as always, has probably turned out to be around 15 minutes long, which inevitable, and I did say about my lack of conciseness, but for these videos I don't care. That's not what these are about. These are giving me an opportunity to speak out loud and talk about what I'm thinking, and go off topic and digress, and then come back onto topic and then go off again, and that's just I feeling like that's how these are working really well. And whether or not they see the light of day, I have no idea whether that's appropriate or not, or whether or not I feel like I need to. These are very much for me. I'll watch this back again, just like I have done all the others, and that shows me an awful lot, as much as the kind of therapeutic nature almost of just doing these videos. So without further ado, I'm going to cut that off, and I shall come back tomorrow, because I'm going to have lots to talk about tomorrow with the clinics and stuff I'm doing tomorrow. Okay, so with that, over and out.